Today, we're diving into one of the biggest challenges out there, really in business and in life, leading change. We're going to explore why something as tiny as an app update can feel so incredibly wrong, and how those exact same feelings scale all the way up to transformations that can reshape entire industries.
So let's start with the feeling I think we've all had. You open your phone one morning and your favorite app, it looks completely different. That one button you use all the time, poof, it's gone. Why does a tiny little shift like that trigger such a huge negative reaction in us?
And this really gets to the heart of it, right? It's the paradox of progress. We absolutely need change to make things better, but our brains are pretty much hardwired to resist it. It messes with our habits, our muscle memory, our feeling of being in control. And that tension, that's exactly what leaders have to learn to manage.
Okay, so if you know you're going to face resistance, how do you lead through it? Well, it's not about finding one magic bullet. It's about having a toolkit. And the real skill isn't just knowing the tools. It's knowing which one to pull out and when.
So here are the core strategies, and you'll notice they all have trade-offs. Education is fantastic, but it's slow. Coercion, on the other hand, super fast, but it can absolutely destroy trust. A great leader doesn't just have a favorite tool. They diagnose the situation first. Are they dealing with misinformation, raw fear, or maybe a powerful group that's blocking progress? The answer tells you which tool to use.
But tools are pretty useless if you don't have a plan. So now let's look at the two essential blueprints for actually making change happen. One for the organization as a whole, and one for every individual inside it.
It's kind of like building a house, right? A pile of hammers and saws isn't enough. You need the blueprint. And in change management, we need a framework to turn all those strategies we just talked about into a plan that actually makes sense.
And this is Kurt Lewin's classic blueprint. He had this brilliant idea that before you can build something new, you have to melt the old structure. That's unfreeze. You have to challenge the way things have always been done. Then you introduce the change. But maybe the most critical step of all is refreeze. You have to make sure the new way actually solidifies and becomes the new normal, so it doesn't just melt away a week later.
But here's the thing, an organization is just a group of people. So the 8CAR model zooms in on each person's individual journey. It shows us that for any change to really work, every single person has to go from just awareness of why it's happening to a personal desire to be a part of it. And from there, they need the knowledge and the ability to make the shift with constant reinforcement to make it permanent.
So, the most important point is this. You absolutely need both. The best leaders are managing the change on two fronts at the exact same time. They're using Lewin's model to shift the whole system, the whole structure, while also using the principles of 8CAR to make sure every single person feels able to make that journey with them. You simply can't succeed if you ignore either the structure or the person.
All right, enough theory. Let's see how this stuff actually plays out in the real world. We're about to step into a really high-stakes arena, the digital revolution in banking. This is a place where getting change right isn't just a nice goal. It's a matter of survival.
Our first competitor is a true giant in Canadian banking, TD Bank Group. We're talking about a massive, traditional institution with this deeply rooted, risk-averse culture. And they were facing this urgent, undeniable need to become a digital-first company.
So TD took a very careful, very measured approach. They poured millions into education and support, basically retraining their entire workforce for the new digital age. They tried experimenting with these agile pods, but these little innovation hubs really struggled to get their ideas adopted by the huge, slow-moving mothership. And the outcome? Well, it was predictable. A stable, methodical, but very, very slow transformation.
Now, our second competitor took a completely different path. DBS Bank in Singapore didn't just want to update their tech. They wanted to become a technology company that just happened to do banking. Their goal, and this is a direct quote, was making banking joyful.
DBS went all in on shared power. And I mean, this wasn't just a suggestion box. It was a radical overhaul of their entire culture. They used hackathons and employee-led projects to turn their entire workforce into innovators, literally co-creating the bank's future from the bottom up. And the result? A high-risk, kind of chaotic shockwave that ultimately transformed them into a global digital leader.
And this just illustrates the strategic trade-off perfectly. There was no single right answer here. TD chose stability over speed, protecting its core business while it slowly evolved. DBS, on the other hand, chose speed over stability, embracing short-term chaos to achieve a massive long-term leap. Two successful banks, two completely different paths, and it all came down to their choice of change strategy.
So how do we take all these big ideas and actually apply them? Because whether you're leading a class project, a team at work, or a shift in your local community, these principles can become your own personal playbook.
So here's a really practical playbook. First, always start by educating. Explain the why behind the change to get rid of the fear. Then, involve people to build a sense of ownership. You want to make it our change, not just your change. And finally, you have to negotiate the real-world hurdles. Those 3 steps, used together, are an incredibly powerful foundation for leading any change.
So let's boil all of this down to 3 final principles for your toolkit. First, diagnose before you prescribe. You can't solve an emotional problem with a logical spreadsheet. Second, manage both the system and the person. Look through both Lewin's big picture lens and ADCare's individual one. And finally, remember this, participation isn't just a nice thing to do, it's data. It is your single best source of intelligence for making the change actually succeed.
And let's end by looking to the future. Because the next massive wave of change driven by AI, it won't just be about learning new tools. It's going to challenge the very core of our professional identities. The question is going to shift from how do I do my job to what even is my job now? And leading that kind of change will require us to move beyond just teaching and negotiating and toward co-creating entirely new roles, turning that deep human resistance into an engine for reinvention.